Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 7 of season 7, which is Orison. Brian, tell me a little bit about the legacy of this episode.
Well, this is a sequel that I don't think anybody ever really expected was going to come. Obviously we'd had sequels before to standalone villains, like the likes of Tombs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure there's another Pusher. We had one to Pusher as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of the most obvious ones really would have been Donny Faster because I know, like we all know, that you don't like Irresistible, or certainly you didn't. I don't know
Yeah.
if things have. I don't know if you've seen it again since, or things have
Yes.
changed. But okay, well, Donny Faster is a bit of a fan favorite for most X Files fans. There are very few, such as yourself, who didn't rate it that highly, which is more of an anomaly than anything else. But yeah, so most people, I think, if at this point before we got Orison, I think if you'd have asked most X Files fans who would you like a sequel to, if you're going to give a Villain of the Week a sequel, who's the obvious choice? And I think a lot of X Files fans, if not most, would have said Donny Faster. But to come so after the fact, so late after the fact, like 5 years, 6 years, 5 years after the fact, it's like, okay, that's that's a choice. But yeah, I, I I really don't know how people view this in terms of where they view the first one. Now I can't remember where the first one came in the rankings when it came to like the IMDb rankings and stuff. But let me ask you,
Mm-hmm.
where do you think it sits? 217 episodes. Where do you think it sits?
So, Orison, we're not talking Irresistible, we're talking Orison, yeah.
Not Irresistible, Orison. Yeah.
So it's a fan favourite, is it? Like the first one? Because I'm,
The the first
yeah.
one is, yeah. Yeah.
And in my perception, I think the viewership has changed from the early years of the X Files to where it is now. I would
Okay.
imagine that throughout time. So I am going to say that this one is 123.
Okay. So it's actually a little lower. It's 137.
Right, okay.
Right.
So I'm
Okay.
not getting it spot on.
You're not
No,
getting it
is that
spot
me?
on this
No.
week. No, we're not discussing an episode about luck, so I'm afraid your luck has run out. Okay.
So
22 episodes of this
you say my luck has
season.
ran out, Brian. I'd say my luck's went back to where it was and should always be. Because um, okay,
You had a blip, that was all.
yeah,
Um, 22 episodes of this season. Where do you think this sits overall this season?
13.
13? Oh, that's close. It's 14. So you've aimed slightly higher on both. But yeah, 14 in this one. So,
I mean, when I make my guesses, I remove myself from the situation and try to put my perception into X Files fans.
you try to.
So yeah, I try to. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Can I just
Now, I
quickly
have
talk
to
about?
ask,
Okay, on you go.
you say you've seen Irresistible again.
Yes,
Give us your quick thoughts.
I was just about to go into that. So, I watched Irresistible and Orison back to back.
Orison. Right.
Um, Again with Irresistible, I just don't like it. I don't like the fact that Scully is so bewitched or has this connection with Faster. I don't like that she's so intimidated and scared. I I don't like the devil imagery. Do you know the certain moments where you kind of see his
Mm.
strange shape?
Mm.
Um, and I just find the character of Faster like just I think it's I don't know, it leaves me cold. Like it's not like an interest. You know, you watch some films, you can find a serial killer who you find terrifying or horrifying. This guy just seems to be bland for me, and it doesn't stick out in any way. So that's I reaffirmed all my thoughts in Irresistible
All
going
right.
back at it. I gave it a second chance. I still didn't feel it.
So it doesn't bode well for this episode. I just like Irresistible was always a 5-star episode for me, and in our discussion, you know, I have to freely admit that in our discussion, because of some of the points you raised, it did knock it down to a 4. And the big criticism for me, the one that brings Irresistible down a full star, is the notion that someone who acts as creepily as Donny Faster does would be able to hide so well. Like there's so many people in the episode that are like, oh, good old Donny Faster. It's like, you're not sensing creep vibes off this dude because he's really creepy. Other than that, everything else, like I don't have a problem with where Scully's at in that episode because she's coming right off the back of her abduction. Like she's in a very vulnerable place in her life because she's literally just had the whole abduction thing. Now, if that episode had come at any other time, I think there's maybe a case to be made to say why has Scully gone such a wuss? But I think it's because it comes literally right off the back of, and the case is about women being taken and having their power taken away from them, and I think because of those parallels, that's why she's suddenly. It's like when I watched The Fall Guy just yesterday, and there's the whole story thing in that. It's like he has an accident at the beginning, and because of that, he loses his mojo. It's like this is the guy who's done stunts for like his whole life, and because he had an accident, he no longer trusts himself because like his confidence has been shaken. And I think it's the same thing in Irresistible with Scully, because of the abduction. It raises all these feelings there, but so other than Donny Faster being a bit of a creepazoid, I don't really have the same problems you do with it, and I do find it quite interesting to look at this guy as, because like you mentioned the devil imagery, and in Irresistible, I feel like the devil imagery in there is, it's left to you, the viewer, to decide whether it's symbolic or whether he is actually turning into that. Is this an image people create in their mind as soon as the fear kicks in? Because that's how they quantify evil, whatever. And therefore is it just a metaphor kind of thing that a person makes in their brain, or is it genuinely happening? Obviously, in this episode, I think that's called into question a lot more, but we'll get into it. So
yeah.
Okay. So we open up in a prison, and it's basically in the chapel. All the prisoners are listening to the preacher, played by what's his face from Lethal Weapon 3, the bad guy from Lethal Weapon 3, and Mask of Zorro. Can't remember his name.
Nope.
Yeah, he was the main villain in Lethal Weapon 3 anyway. So he's this preacher, and he's giving his whole like spiel. He's like, glory, amen, glory, amen. And every time he says it, you can see people like lifting the knees up and so like it's clearly like something going on there. We cut from there to a prison workshop, and basically there's a guard antagonizing Donny Faster. So Donny Faster's in there, and the guard's got no time for him, clearly hates him, and just then one of the inmates who's working a saw machine cuts his own fingers off.
Yeah,
at least so it seems. He's like, ah! And then suddenly time just starts to slow down. It just slows down, and Donny just seems to like move at normal speed, and he just steps in and out of people, and it's like nobody sees him, and he's like, okay, cool, I'm out of here, and off he goes. And cut to opening credits.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good opening sequence. The whole preacher thing is just it's kind of funny because it's like what people perceive to kind of be like the kind of wacky preachers, the ones that are always looking for those interactions that you feel as if it's like they're almost like selling snake oil type of thing. They just it has the feeling of cult about it. the way he's kind of like driving these people forward, and the whole chopping off the fingers was terrific. But I have no idea what's going on in this sequence whatsoever. I don't know why everything's happening, and because I'm in the back of my mind, I'm just like, is Faster a demon? Why has he wasted so many years in prison? Can he just walk out whenever he wanted? I didn't know what was happening here at all.
Right, because I've thought in that scene it is very clearly played by what's his face, the actor who plays Donny Faster. He clearly looks like he doesn't know what's happening, because like when everything starts to slow down, everything starts to slow down, and he's looking at everything going, ooh, what's happening right now? And then like he's an opportunist, so he's like, well, I don't know what's happening, but I'm not going to question it. I'm out of here.
Yeah, but it's just for me, like I had no idea where this episode was going, what was happening, why it was happening. It was an interesting opening because I had so many questions, and I'm like, I want to figure out why this has happened like this.
Yeah.
So like I know you'd seen it before, so you kind of knew it was coming from this. I haven't seen this episode before. Right. So I was like, and I find that when you get something that's mysterious and interesting, like I want to know more. So it's like a good start to the episode.
Yeah. Okay. So Scully is woken up by her alarm clock that says 666 on it.
Yeah.
She gives it a bit of a tap, and then it changes to 606. So obviously nobody needs to be told 666, no, mark of the beast, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, she gets a phone call basically, and then we cut from there to the prison debrief, where we're being told that, well, what's happened basically. Donny Faster's gone. We can see that this is dredging up a lot of history for Scully. Mulder's kind of like talking about who Donny Faster is and whatnot, and then the guy that seems to have, I don't know, guess brought them in or whatever. He's like, you know, we know you guys deal like with the supernatural, the weird stuff, the supernatural kind of stuff, and that's when Scully says he's not supernatural, he's just plain evil.
But the FBI guy is like there's just something about him that you're just like, I just don't like you. Like I don't know what it is, but I immediately have a disliking to you.
He's got one of those faces.
I think I didn't want to say it, but yes, I think you're 100% right. You just like, okay, we're shaking things up. We now have a douchebag FBI agent.
He's got a manager's face. That's the thing.
Yeah.
His back in my days in a particular department store that I will not mention, there were certain managers that just rub you the wrong way, and they had that face. So Scully goes to the chapel, and she hears a piece of music coming through like one of the vents, and it's the song I can't remember the name of right now. Don't look any further. So don't look any further. Don't you look no further. You remember that one?
Definitely edit that out, Brian. Yeah, you want that gone. If that's on the internet, that is out there for life.
That's all right. I don't care. I've got a lot of self-esteem. Too much self-esteem to worry about that. This will bring it down. But I remember a cover of that particular song doing the rounds in the 90s, like early 90s, I think it was. I think it cracked the charts or something. But anyway, not one of my favourite songs, got to be said.
You'd never have known from that rendition.
Okay, so Mulder challenges her on why she's here. Yeah. So he's kind of like essentially saying, look, this is obviously a very personal case for you. You don't have to be here. Why don't you go home? You've got a choice. And she essentially says, I'm an FBI agent. It's my job to capture these people, to make people safe. I have no choice. So that tells you really where, about her professionalism and her mindset, and that to a large degree, this is her facing her demon. And I think that's what this episode is about. For much of it is Scully facing that demon. So 2 other prisoners apparently broke out. This is what Mulder's telling Scully right now. 2 other prisoners broke out from... I couldn't get whether he was saying this prison or other prisons. I think he was saying like from other prisons.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 prisoners are broken out from previous prisons, and the factor that connects them all is this preacher Orison, who's been at all 3 prisons as the chapel preacher. So Donnie makes 3 and he broke out at 6:06 in the morning, which obviously pricks Scully's ears up, because that's when her alarm clock woke her up at 6:06, even though it said 6:66 as well at the time. None of the escapees have been found, so the 2 men who broke out have not been found. So they does that set any kind of alarm bells ringing as to what might be happening at that point?
Yeah, I'm kind of like obviously the preacher's involved. I'm not too sure what with, so I am definitely more interested in what the preacher aspect of this episode is thus far. The Donny Faster episode, I think I know what's going to come with that, so I'm interested in the new element.
Yeah. So they talk to the man who cut his hands off, or his fingers, who is sat there quite happily tapping his fingers on the table. So clearly what happened was a vision. It was all in his head. And that's when he's kind of says, "Glory, amen," when Mulder starts bringing his hand up. So Mulder's clearly like cottoned on something. It's like conditioning, a kind of conditioning. And he's pointing it out to Scully. Post-hypnotic suggestion is what he says. And Mulder believes that it's the prison chaplain. He's behind this somehow. He's using post-hypnotic suggestion to orchestrate events. And at that point, Scully hears the music once again.
Her own form of suggestion as well, which comes throughout the episode. She's being nudged or pushed, it would feel, all the way through it in certain ways. The same way, not as overtly as the preacher is changing things, but she's definitely seeing signs and being nudged, you could say, by some kind of force.
A higher power,
I
would say. Yeah.
But I do like the whole the man explaining the fingers. Like, I think there's a moment there that I really like where he says, "I felt like my fingers had been cut off." You know, it wasn't just a vision. The idea of physical pain and the idea of that is something that's stuck with him and something that could stay with him the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know, that experience, which is just weird.
You've got the trauma of the experience without actually having the experience, so to speak. There's a lot to be said there about the power of the mind. And
so I like that little moment. I think that's good.
Okay. So Donnie goes to a diner. And it's there that he's propositioned by what is clearly a prostitute. He offers to give her a buff and polish.
And it's
good old Donnie. Don't ever change.
Not just here, but throughout the whole episode, like the way people around about him are hiding their hands. So he's obviously got like a fixated look or something terrifying, yet they will quite happily go away with him and do all kinds of weird stuff, but they always want to hide their fingers from him.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, and you know, this is.
I'll even do your cuticles.
Yeah, how do you say this without taking some flack from some people? Like, you know, I'm not saying she's lesser of a human being, but she is a prostitute. Therefore, I would imagine she deals with
weirdos,
yeah, and perverts and people who are not what you would call the most chivalrous of men. You know, there's a certain type of person who uses a prostitute. So I would imagine this is just another part of the job for her. Is that all right? This is his little weird fetish kind of thing. Like she's probably dealt with a lot of different weird fetishes, and this is just another. And it's like, oh great, he's a nails guy. So and to a large degree, that is why Faster targets prostitutes.
Yeah.
Because as we see when he, like in Irresistible, when he tried it on with the girl in his class, she was having none of it. Whereas with prostitutes, it's like they get paid to put up with that crap, to put up with the weird perversions of these creepy guys that pay for them.
I do find it strange. It's just odd, and it's not something that's a big thing. But in the Irresistible, he gets beat up by the student. He kind of ends up in jail because of that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He attacks her, and then in this one, he tries to attack another one who just like beats him up and leaves him there. And I'm just like, this is like a serial killer guy who's like getting beat up by these women quite regularly. I just thought that was odd.
Yeah. Where are we? So it offers a buff and polish, and then Orison interrupts him. Basically warns him that God is watching, and says that basically it's like, it's almost like he has let Donnie Faster out as a test to see, like, will you go back to your old ways, or will you change? And like he shows up here as if to say, you're failing. You're going back to your old ways. This isn't what I let you out for. But Donnie's just like, this weird preacher guy. What the hell? Like, get out of my face. So he gets moved. So Orison interrupts, warns him that God is watching, and then he helps him evade the police. So like, gets him out to the car, and he gets mowed down for his trouble. So first of all, we have the world slowing down again. So like the police come in, they see Faster, and then all of a sudden there's a scream because somebody just sort of randomly attacks the waitress, and everything slows down again, which gives Donnie and this prostitute woman the chance to like zip on out of there, get into a car. They get into Orison's car.
Yes, take his car as well.
Take his keys and mow him down on the way out. So yeah, great stuff.
It's great stuff. Yeah,
I like the way the sequence play, like the tension that comes in seeing things in slow motion. You know, because you can see the coffee going towards the face, and like the police kind of slowly pulling the guns and stuff.
But it's well directed. Like even the camera pans when it pans to the women being attacked, and then pans back to the empty where Donnie and the preacher were. Like, it's all really well put together. It's a great sequence.
Mulder and Scully meet the police, who seem dumbfounded. They tell them...
Can I just say, this is some of the best acting I think I've ever seen. I just love this. There's no, like... Because I feel like this is the kind of guy that would make excuses.
Yeah.
But there's none.
He doesn't. He's just like... No. He's just clearly, like, perplexed, isn't he? He's like... I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. He was there, then he wasn't. It's like... See, they tell them about Orison, the fact that they saw him there, stood there with Faster. Then Scully hears the song again playing on the radio. Third time's a charm. Scully speaks to Orison, who confronts her with her faith. So this is it in the hospital bed. You know, he questions her doubt and calls her Scout, which is what her dad used to call her.
See, I thought that because but then she mentions that it's what the Sunday school teacher used to call her.
Yeah, she says that. No. So her dad used to call her Starbuck, didn't he?
Right, but I But when I heard Scout, I thought, oh, that's what
Yeah.
Dad called her.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I put it in the note there. It's only like I get into the next scene when she explains it, and then I scrubbed it out and I was like, oh, it's not a dad. It's I just, yeah, I thought it was the dad. I seem to have a recollection that a dad called a Scout, but then it just came to me. It was Starbuck. He used to call a Starbuck. So yeah, but yeah, this is an episode that's definitely about faith, and it's particularly in reference to Scully and where her faith's at, and does she trust it enough to follow it, kind of thing, to follow where it's leading, because she's hearing these songs, and it's like you can either put that down to coincidence or what Christians like to call God incidence. Oh, so
I'd cut that too.
So it's just, the fact of the matter is like, is this just coincidence, or is she going to lean into her faith and say, no, I don't believe in coincidences. There's the clock. There's this song that's playing repeatedly, just as someone from my past that is, has reared his ugly head. Is this all coincidence, or is God telling me something here? And Orison's essentially saying, look, lean into your faith. Try and listen to what God's telling you. So Mulder enters and he's all antagonistic. He hands Orison a photo and he tells Scully Orison is a convicted murderer. Orison says God spoke to him, and Mulder, again, rather dismissively says, did he happen to mention where Donnie was heading?
Yeah.
So it's just, there's a few episodes this season that are very close together as well, where we see Mulder being quite dismissive or certainly antagonistic.
Yeah.
Pardon me. That snuck up.
Yeah.
We see a lot of times Mulder being antagonistic towards faith, towards religion in this season, just across a few episodes. We've got another one coming up called Signs and Wonders, a couple of episodes from now. And it's the same in that. And it's almost like, why are you poking the bear, Mulder? It's like it's poking Scully all the time as if to, test her faith kind of thing. It's like, it sometimes feels just a bit too disrespectful. Given a lot of the crazy ass stuff that he drags Scully along for, and just expects her to go along with his wacky theories. Whenever it comes to matters of faith, he seems very like pokey, like dismissive type thing. But yeah, so Orison, obviously, it turns out he was a convicted murderer, but he, found Christ, I guess, is how he would put it, and became a prison chaplain. So Mulder poo-poos Orison, but Scully says, how do you prove he's not hearing from God? He's quite derogatory, but then Scully lists a few things that make her feel that God is talking to her, such as the clock, such as the song, such as the link to her, the scout thing, the fact that Orison called a scout. He asks what God is saying then, but she's unsure. Then he tells her to come with him so he can show her how Orison does it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Donnie, yeah. I mean, it's that's the central thesis of this episode. Is Scully going to lean into her faith, or is she going to explain it away with what might be more natural kind of, explanations, so to speak? Donnie cuts the top of his car, or more to the point, Orison's car.
Yeah.
Then checks the boot for stuff, and he finds Orison's ID, which gives him essentially Orison's home address.
Yeah.
So Mulder tells...
I like the moment. It's just kind of like he's listening to the report on the radio, just that they're looking for a green car with a black roof, and he's just like,
yeah, off it comes, yeah.
Disguised. Great.
Yeah, badoom. Mulder tells, although now he looks a bit odd because he's driving around at night in a car with no roof on. Mulder tells Scully that Orison purposefully drilled a hole in his own skull to allow 3 times more blood oxygen to his brain, giving him the ability to stop the world, according to some ancient tribal kind of people that did that kind of thing. Though he was doing God's work, thought he was doing God's work, but instead of opening the doors of heaven, maybe he unleashed the gates of hell. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is X-Files 101, isn't it? I just love the idea of this. Like, it's drilled a hole in the back of his head and then they link it to some long dead group of people,
Yeah.
Like, they were so enlightened that they killed themselves and died out.
Too much power, as it was. Too much power.
That's exactly what it is, yeah.
So, yeah, and then we get another glory amen scene where Orison escapes. He basically does the what was it? Mulder called it in the that might have been Pusher actually, where he said he put the something on him. I can't remember what it was he said.
The whammy? No, it was
the whammy. Yeah, put the whammy on him. So he puts the whammy on the guard, basically takes his gun, off he goes, and the guard's just sat there like, yeah, my head. Comes in the next scene, a couple of scenes. So Donnie is hiding out at Orison's place, and a prostitute calls round. Yep. And she comes on in, and Donnie's like, love your hair.
She's a redhead.
Yeah, apparently. She's having a bath, and he brings some products, because Donnie Faster loves his products. Yeah. Then
you can almost see the production going, how many can he actually hold in his arms? Because he's got about 20 bottles here.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So she's having a bath and he brings some products, then freaks out when he realizes she's wearing a wig. She whacks him and escapes. So yeah, this was the moment you were talking about. When she blindsides him and boom, off she goes, gets out there.
And I'm wondering, how does he go about subduing people? Is he looking for the victim? Because there's always the fight or flight type thing, and when a strong woman fights back, does he just crumble? Is that something that's too much? Because I'd say that Scully gives a good fight, but he dominates her. But then there's other moments where women seem to dominate him.
Yeah, I mean, the Scully fight's a bit different because there's a lot of back and two there. It becomes a wrestle, essentially, and ultimately he overpowers her because he's, a 6'2", fairly wide guy, and she's a 5'3" daint. But, we'll get to that. Whereas the fight, if you want to call it that, between Donnie and the prostitute ain't no fight at all. She just blindsides him, whacks him over the head. So that's not about strength. That's not about his weakness, so to speak. It's just he's a dude who got hammered in the head with something that's going to put most guys down. I think his weakness in that situation was underestimating and was allowing his anger to get the better of him and show his hand before subduing her, kind of thing. But
I do like the fact that she whacks him with a candle, and then when he's on the ground, he's got the dried wax down his face. It's an easy thing to miss, but it kind of made me chuckle as well.
Yeah, this reminds me of an incident I had on a film set once.
Okay, let's just stop there. We don't have more information to cut.
I'll just leave that with people now. They can forever just wonder what that incident was. So Mulder and Scully find Orison gone, and the security guards look on his face. He's just priceless because they come in and they're like, "Where is he?" And he's just like, what? Oh. And then he starts looking around the room like, what?
Yeah.
I lost my pants.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't quite remember what Scully says, but basically Mulder's response is, "Don't look any further, Scully." Like it's basically Mulder's way of saying just leave it. It's it's nothing we can do, which is a bit of an odd way to go, Mulder. Donnie wakes to Orison pointing a gun on him. So like clearly he was whacked hard enough to knock him out because he's just waking up now. So Orison's there quoting Bible verses about judgment and whatnot. Cut to Donnie being made to dig his own grave. He starts crying, and Orison asks if he cries for his sins or for himself. But Donnie says, I cry for you because you cannot kill me. Then he shapeshifts, and that's when we see Devil Donnie.
Yeah. What do you think about this sequence, Brian?
It's my... it's overt. That's the thing. And I think this episode in general is more overt. It's leaning into the fact that Donnie is essentially a tool of something more, of a higher power or a lower power, should we say? So I liked with Irresistible that side of things was always, it could be in their head because of the circumstance, because of the fear. Whereas here, it's very overt that no, Donnie does seem to be changing there. He does see.
Okay, so I hated this because again, it makes it something that it really shouldn't be. I think, it could be because we quite clearly see him shape-shifting into a devil figure. But on thinking about it and thinking about the preacher and thinking about his swelling in the brain and the hole in his head and things that are going on there, as he finally realised that this person is irredeemable, and is he seeing that devil shape in his eyes? Is that what he's imagining is happening?
Yeah, I mean that's a good take. Yeah, I like that take. I could go with that. Yeah, because it does come, doesn't it? It comes at the moment that Donnie, because Orison asks him, are you crying for yourself or for your sins? As in, are you genuinely sorry about what you've done? Because it feels like Orison is on a mission here. Like he's let these people go in the hope that they are going to change. And when they don't change, then he believes it's his mission from God to put them in the ground, essentially.
Yes.
And he's at that final point here with Donnie where he's asking, look, what are you crying for? And Donnie's basically just flat out saying, well, it ain't for my sins, and it ain't for me. Yeah. So, right off the bat, and it's right after that he changes. And is like you say, is that just
the only visualization?
Person is the preacher. Yeah,
is the only person who's seeing that is the preacher.
Yeah, so that's the visualization in the preacher's mind as he realizes that Donnie is just pure evil. That there's no change in him. That's
That make that scene a wee bit more palatable for you?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Just because if he can shapeshift, if he can do that, then again it goes back to your question earlier. Why has he been languishing in prison for so long? It's like clearly there's something else there that would allow him to he'd be out. It's like he's got a power there that's beyond like your average kind of Joe. So Mulder and Scully are at the scene of the burials. Orison is one of the victims. They find the two bodies of the previous prisoners, but they also find Orison's. So somehow Donnie kind of got free and killed Orison. And again, there is that thing there that is Donnie being led. Like while Donnie might not necessarily in a true physical sense be shapeshifting into this thing, is it also symbolic of whatever it is that's leading him, whatever it is that's kind of like moving him forward, so to speak, in the same way that God is supposedly speaking to Scully through the radio and through
I think you've got a lot of things going on here, because you've got Orison who says he's been led by God, who's been told what to do. You've got the idea of Donny Faster, and you've got this battle of good v evil between those two. Now you could say that both of them are, like Orison and Faster, are under some kind of mental illness of some sort. Where Orison thinks he's hearing messages from God. Faster is driven by a compulsion to hurt and murder people. Then you've got the whole idea of Scully, who's been driven more covertly, I would say, almost. It's been nudged and pushed in certain directions. Who believes that God is helping her to stop both of these men, because ultimately both of these men are killers.
Yeah.
And I think you've got a good argument that Orison is just a lesser version of Donny Faster.
Yeah.
Because he's helping these criminals escape from prison to ultimately kill them under the pretense of trying to get them to
he's trying to justify himself. Yeah. He's trying to justify himself. So so they're at the burials. Scully apologizes to Mulder for looking too hard for signs that weren't there. Orison was just a murderer and nothing more. Then she says it's like Donny is begging them to catch him, as it was him who placed the call that led them there. Mulder says, "Don't look any further. Stop reading into it and stuff." So, it's like it looks like Scully has kind of given up the faith angle. Like, it's just that actually, all right. Which for me is quite disappointing, because I wish she'd actually lean into it. So Donny enters Scully's apartment. We see him just coming in. It's like we see him coming into a house, and it's like at the moment you just kind of like, yep, Scully's Donny's returned back. Oh no, he's not there. Where is it? Yeah. Oh, hang on a minute. That's Scully's apartment. He places her Bible in the drawer as if to hide it, and Scully enters while he hides. Scully gets into her PJs, little gym jams, very cute, and the clock reads 666.
Yeah.
She sees the clock, and then the lights go out, and then she sees the wardrobe door ajar, and it's like she's suddenly like very kind of, she's aware she may not be alone here, and as she approaches the wardrobe, it's like boom, out it comes. We go from there to detective leaves a call on Mulder's machine about the prostitute. Says that Donny was freaked out by her not being a real redhead. Does this mean anything to you? And obviously leaves the message, and just after the message ends, Mulder enters his apartment. Yeah. And then there's this whole tension that keeps mounting. Mulder, listen to the damn message. So Scully fights Donny, and it's a real badass fight, I think. It's like just Scully's getting thrown through everything. She's giving as good as she gets, proper like kicking his ass to many degree. But ultimately, as I said before, this is a 6'2" guy who, we've seen Scully take down guys before, and that's fine. And she does a pretty damn good job here. But I feel like if this was made today, if this was in another TV show, the reality of this situation as it plays out here would be changed, and she'd girl boss it. And it'd just be like, yeah, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, when a guy that size has got hold of a girl that size from behind, he's not going to have too much trouble pinning her to the floor. I'm sorry for any snowflakes out there who think that just wouldn't be the case, but I'm afraid it is. So I to me, it's believable. The way this scene plays out is entirely believable. She puts up a good fight, but ultimately she gets overpowered. So he ends up pinning her and says he's going to run her a bath. Which, like, you can see the pieces are off. It's like, you son of a... It's like she's been down this road before. She knows what he's about. And last time, it put her in a place of fear. And again, I think that was born out of the situation she'd just been through, the whole abduction thing. And now she's been put in this kind of vulnerable situation, like almost immediately after coming back from being abducted. A lot of time has passed since then. She's been able to process it. Now her reaction's completely different. Now her reaction is anger. It's like you can literally see it in her. If she could get her hands free, she'd go another 10 rounds with this guy. She's not scared anymore. She's just pissed off. And I love how that's all played. I just think it's, great acting. Mulder hears "Don't look any further" on the radio as he's brushing his teeth, and you see him kind of like slowly contemplating it, weighing it up. Donnie puts Scully in the closet.
Yep.
Yeah, literally, not any kind of metaphor going on there. He puts her in the closet while Mulder rings. He runs her a bath while she crawls under the bed. She's kind of like getting out and like crawling under, and it's like, again, the way it's shot, brilliant. Yeah. Like, the way it's directed is it's very. I can't remember who directed this one. I feel like it was Rob Bowman. Just Rob Bowman knows what he's doing in how he positions the camera, how he frames the actors, like how the blocking, so to speak. Because I've seen this episode a lot of times, and yet this whole end sequence, I always get quite tense during. So I know how it's going to end, I know it's going to play out, but it's all down to how it's directed, how it plays out, and the constant stretching of the moment. I can't remember who it was. I think it was David Fincher who was talking about how to build tension and whatnot. And it's like it's taking a moment that in reality would play for like 20 seconds, and how can you stretch that out? How can you stretch it to the point where, so like Mulder finding out or coming to the realization as to what's going on, stretch it out so he misses the voicemail, and then he's in bed brushing his teeth. Like, what the hell are you doing? You shouldn't be in bed brushing your teeth. You should already be on your way. Stretching it out with all these different things. But and the way it's framed as well. So we're in Scully's position all the time. So the way the camera moves around her as Donnie's coming in, it's like, oh, she's literally like within a hair's breadth of being seen by him, and you're just like, hide. So yeah, very well directed.
And yet the whole time I'm thinking, where did they get all those candles from? Did they come with those candles? Like, I need to stop getting. Yeah,
I'm guessing he brought them all. He knew what he was there to do. He wasn't going to leave the candles behind. Yeah. So he finishes setting up the candles, then he goes and turns the radio off. Then the world slows down as Scully makes for the gun. Again, like, just stretching that moment. She's there trying to reach the gun. It's literally just within reach. We know he's on the way towards her, and then the flipping world slows down again. So it's like, oh, come on, get to the gun. Just a great build of tension. And then where are we? So the world slows down, and Scully makes for the gun, and he makes for Scully. Mulder busts through the door, and he's like, Donnie turns around, and Mulder, you can see he's like, get down, put your hands up, and all that kind of stuff. But then Scully very casually walks in, empties a clip into him. Boom. It's over.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, okay, yeah. She ain't messing about.
No. And there is a line definitely crossed there.
There is a line crossed, and but it's very specifically, it's for a reason. Like this is the thing. It's like, and we're going to go over some of this ground again a couple of episodes from now in Signs and Wonders. I think that episode deals with a lot of these issues as well, but in an even more kind of overt way. And I'll just go over the last scene first before we, talk about all of that, everything that's gone on there. So the police go over the apartment while Mulder follows Scully into the bedroom to have a chat. She finds the Bible that obviously Donnie had put out of the way. He tells her she can't judge herself. She asks what was at work in her. And Mulder's like, do you mean, was it God? And she says, what if it wasn't? Which is, if you look at the characters of Orison and Donnie Foster, there is that question that, what is driving them? Orison believes it's God. Is it? Is it really? Would God drive him to, go around and kill these men? Would God drive him to let them out of prison where they're going to be a danger to society, only to then kill them? And then you've got, Donnie, who may or may not be directed by some kind of demonic force. And then you've got Scully, who's in the middle of all that. Which one of those forces is she being driven by, if any? And it's a real grey area kind of ending, because it's like, whichever way you cut it, she's just killed a man in cold blood. But was it her? Obviously, like and we see Mulder here willing to compromise himself, because he's like, whatever happens, my report will reflect that. And it's like, okay, just how far are you willing to go, Mulder, on your report in terms of sprucing it up to, are you going to say that?
You could look as well. He does look away because there's a spark from like a ceiling, something going off. So he looks away for a brief second as the gunshot is fired. Yeah. So, she could say that he dove for her, or he went to attack her. But yeah, I feel this is a line crossed for both these characters here.
It is, but like not in a way that pisses me off. That's the thing. It's more in a way that challenges me. Like in the way that I feel it should. Like I feel like they're trying to challenge her. Like, in this case, in this scenario, is there room for us to believe that Scully wasn't in control? We have the insanity defense. Not that the insanity defense ever wins in a court of law. It's very, 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 very rarely that the insanity defense actually gets results for the person claiming insanity. Often, more often than not, they end up imprisoned longer because they're in a mental institution.
Yeah.
So, like there is that notion that, like, okay, is Scully driven by insanity here because of everything she's been through with this guy? This is like the second time he's invaded her home, the second time he's tied her up and nearly done away with her. Is this like brought her to the point of enough's enough? Or is this like an out of body experience right now? Is she literally not in control of what's going on? Is God pulling the trigger here? Or, as Scully, questions, is the devil pulling the trigger? Though, I don't personally see why the devil would destroy the devil. That's like, that's, biblically that does not work. A house divided against itself cannot stand, as the quote goes. So, yeah, it's an ending that just leaves a lot of questions. And so I think I may have said last episode, I did a paper on this episode for an exam. when I was at uni. So one of my modules was like writing for TV. It was like a creative writing module, but one of the things in that was like writing for TV and stuff. And I can't quite remember what the question was, but it had something to do with like how religious themes can be explored or something in TV. And then I used this episode as an example to talk about the ways in which religious themes are best explored in TV by raising questions. And I use this episode as because like we never get a definitive answer as to what may be driving Scully here. We're just left with questions, and I think that leaves the audience open to explore that further, whether they want to explore faith further, or whether they want to explore the psychology further, or things like that. And so yeah, I do think this is a good example of how TV can explore those issues without giving you definitive answers either way. I think when TV shows give you definitive answers either way, it loses points for me, because then they're telling you what you should think, they're telling you what you should believe. Whereas here, I think they throw everything into the melting pot, which raises a load of questions, and then they step back and say, right, it's up to you to decide what you want to take from that. So yeah. Wrap up.
Like again, like I said, I wasn't a biggest fan of Donny Faster, so this character coming back into it again felt like a slog. But it's mixed with the whole preacher character, which I really enjoyed, and I found that an interesting aspect and made something a little bit different. So it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction. Every time Donny Faster's on screen, I'm checking out, not interested. The whole theological discussions that come out of this are not something I'm interested in having either. So I find it's one of those episodes that just puts me in the back foot almost immediately.
I love Signs and Wonders then.
I would say this is a better episode than Irresistible.
Right.
I prefer this more, but that's like saying I prefer being punched twice to being punched 4 times. It's not like it's not like a big jump. For me, it's an episode that, although is cohesive and works well, and I can understand the arguments and the discussions and what it's trying to do thematically, it doesn't strike a chord with me at all. And I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, Brian.
Right. Okay. See, I was I was leaning on a 4.
Okay.
But because of our discussion, I'm now going to go to a 5.
A 5? I think that's a big jump. I understand that what I said to you about the demon turning thing was...
Yeah.
It's an argument.
That was my biggest gripe, really, was that was the bit where, because that seemed to become overt, I was like, oh man, that's... Because everything else in this episode I actually really love. And obviously, as a person of faith, it speaks to me in a way that, like, I like to grapple with this stuff. I like the questions it raises. Is murder ever justified? Well, actually, in the Bible, we do see that sometimes it is. When God's the one directing it, when God's the one, when God does it, it's not murder. But how do you bring those questions from ancient, like, biblical texts to a modern context? I think most people in society would look at a person like Donny Foster, who kills women, and say, actually, you know what? Yeah, you get the picture. So is it ever justified? And I think this question, That's just one of the questions it raises. So yeah, for me, it was that scene that was kind of holding it back from a 5. But like when I look at it from that perspective, which we discussed, I stopped having the problems with it that I did.
Yeah.
And I do really enjoy this episode, and I always love that whole final 10-minute kind of climax thing. So yeah, 5 from me.
Great.
5 for me, 3 for you. You're just smiling because I said climax, aren't you?
No, but I'm glad you said that. Yeah, so that's exactly where your mind is. I'm just smiling because this episode's over, and we are going to look at next week's episode 8, The Amazing Malini. So tell me a little bit about this one, Brian.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like this one. It's like, think The Prestige meets I don't know, something comedic. It's just I think The Prestige via like Vince Gilligan, Darren Morgan type writer. Like it's interesting. It's a not so much a who done it, so much as a how done it.
Right. Okay.
But it's I think it's quite a funny episode if I remember correctly, and it's got like it keeps you guessing as to okay, what are they doing here now? How's going to do that? Yeah. So I think you'll like it. I think you're going to like it a lot more than Orison.
Well, yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. We would love to know what you think of Orison. So, of course, drop us a comment, whether it be on a podcast service or on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. I'm always curious to hear what other people think, other than just our opinion. And while you're there, why don't you like or review our podcast? Because it really allows other people to discover our channel and our passion for the X-Files. Thanks for listening or watching, and we will see you next week for The Amazing Malini.